Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's edition of Ask a Leopard Owner takes us to Royden and Tania on a Leopard 46 sailing catamaran. Before introducing them, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Chris, and in addition to having owned a Leopard 45 myself, I get to work with members of the leopard community, helping to share their stories of adventure, curiosity, and exploration. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and will be published on leopardcatamarans.com in the coming days. In other words, don't worry about writing anything down. You'll receive an email to this video once it's published. To submit your questions at any point today, click the Q&A button at the bottom of this screen. We'll do our best to answer all of your questions, but if we run out of time, we'll share an email address at the end to submit your questions. And lastly, there's a 2-question survey that will pop up after we wrap up today. We'd love your feedback so we can learn what you liked and things that we can do better in future editions. With that out of the way, let's take a quick look at what we're going to cover. And Royden and Tania, feel free to turn on your camera and unmute yourselves whenever you have a moment. But we'll learn about where they are, and when they do turn on their video, you'll see the beautiful backdrop that makes us all want to be there. They have the unique perspective of having owned a Leopard 45 previously, and now are on the Leopard 46. So we'll learn a bit about their decision to be on the Leopard 46, how their Leopard supports blue water cruising and their journey along the way, how they prepare for blue water cruising, and then just the reality of being about the world on the sailing catamaran. And then we'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end. So Royden and Tania, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for being part of the Leopard community, and tell us a little bit about where you are right now and how we can find you to join you for a wind down or a sundowner.
Thank you, guys. It's nice to be here. We are in the Ligurian coast of Italy, south of Genoa, in a town called Porto Venere, which is famous for being the jump-off point to the Cinque Terre, the 5 cliff towns of this part of the ocean. We shipped our boat from Phuket, where we had spent the previous year or so cruising around Southeast Asia, and we shipped her to Genoa. So we've only been back on board for 10 days or so, and we're on our way around to Montenegro, where we'll leave her for the winter.
Amazing. And tell us a little bit about your journey and how sailing has become part of your life, and then what attracted you to life on the water.
Okay. When I sort of first semi-retired, we moved to the Seychelles, and I bought a Power Cat, a Africat 42. But Tania and I didn't really like the Power Cat as an option in the Seychelles, and so after a couple of years, I bought a Lagoon 40, which we sailed around the Seychelles for a couple of years. A friend asked me to help him deliver his new boat from Panama to Fiji, across the Pacific. And it was a Leopard 46, the older version of this boat. And I sailed that with him. It was just the two of us, so it was a long slog. But I was very impressed with the boat. So a couple of years later, when we bought our own boat in the Med, we had by then moved to Mallorca. I bought the new Leopard 45, as it was then, now probably 8 years ago, and had it delivered to the Med, and we kept her in Mallorca for 5 years. I then sailed across the Atlantic in the Ark Rally, and Tania joined me then in St. Lucia, and we sailed all the way up to the Abacos in sort of opposite Miami. I had a great offer for the boat, more than we paid for it, so we sold it. And 2 years later, when we wanted another boat, I was faced with a decision of either buying a sort of later model 45 or the new 46, which was kind of on the drawing board at that stage. So here we are.
Amazing perspective that you have, starting on a Lagoon, a Power Cat, Leopard 45, and now the new version of the Leopard 46. So Can't wait to dig into this a little bit more. But if you could tell us some of the differences, I think for folks who are joining us today are considering joining the Leopard family, and a bunch of Leopard 45s out on the market today that people can get through a broker, and then they can also buy a new private yacht on a 46. So you have this really interesting view in terms of what are the differences between the 45 and the 46 and what drew you to that decision. Can you share some of those and some images that I think also guide us through that on this slide?
Yes, I can. I mean, the points you have at the bottom of the slide are valid. For us, the utility room, we were about to embark on a trip around Southeast Asia, which was really off the grid. There's not much around Borneo and Indonesia. So the utility room was a big factor. The better load carrying capacity of the 46 compared to the 45 was a factor. So we could put on a lifting platform, we could put on a solar arch, and the boat handles it quite well. So I guess those were the main factors, and having a new boat. So there are all kinds of little things. It's the digital switching. They're just lots of little things. The electrics are a bit upgraded. Also, the sail plan is slightly bigger. The performance sails offering. So there were quite a few small differences. And in the end, we went for the new boat rather than an older one.
Tell me a little bit about in the Leopard 45, the floor plan, at least in the owner's version, is the entire starboard hull is the owner's suite. So
that was our previous boat.
Yeah, so you live that a bit, and then the 46 has a slightly different configuration. Do you miss anything by not having that hull or that entire hull as an owner suite?
I think it was a concern in the beginning. We
Yes.
weren't sure. The benefit of having the slightly smaller space for the owner's cabin means that you get another cabin forward, and you can now have a utility room and still have 3 cabins. But having been on board now for a year and a half or so, actually the accommodation for the owner's cabin is actually perfectly fine.
We have much more cupboard space and less wasted space.
Yeah, we never really used the desk sort of setup that was in the 45. I guess it's a personal sort of choice, but we find the accommodation's absolutely fine. There was no worry. It was something we were worried about.
The bed is slightly bigger.
And the bed is wider. Yeah, the bed is 2 inches wider.
It makes a difference.
After 40 years of marriage, it makes a big difference.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about why the Leopard 46. I hear a lot of people in my own 5 when you're looking at different boats. It's always this choice between performance and comfort. And I think what I hear people say a lot about Leopards is they get the intersection of that, or the balance of that they do that pretty well. So tell us a little bit about why your decision now to go on a 46 or Leopard in general.
I think after our 6 years on the 45, we were very happy with the brand, with the boats that are made, with the boats that they make. I mean, first and foremost is just the stiffness of the boat. It's a solid boat. So, and that's, with that comes some compromises, but when you're in the middle of an ocean, you're more than happy to make those compromises. It's quite interesting. I had a very old, very experienced sailor come and do the test sail with me on my 45. And he said the way he tests the boat is he always takes it out into some weather, but then goes below and just listens. And the creaking and groaning and that kind of thing will tell you a hell of a lot about the boat. And
she has no creak
in our
this
boats.
one.
Yeah, they're solidly built, and I guess that's number one of all of the things. So we were quite happy with that. With the trade-off with that is there's a bit more weight, and so your performance is always going to be affected by that. If you want a full carbon boat, you're going to twist and bend a little bit, but you'll go faster. So that's always the trade-off. But we found with our 45 and with the 46, especially with the 46's slightly bigger sail plan, and I do have the performance sails, that the performance is equal, if not slightly better, on the 46. It's hard to tell, but I'd say it's certainly as good a sailor as the 45.
It's an interesting approach with your friend and the weather. I once got stuck off the coast of Florida with a system that moved faster than it was supposed to, 100 miles off the coast, and you realize the boat is built very well in situations like that. Not that I ever want to put myself in that situation again. There's a picture here at bottom left, and this is the helm position on the 46. And talk a little bit about just handling a boat of this size with just the two of you, or even if it's just one of you sailing. The point I also want to highlight is what I see a lot of is people starting with sailing catamarans and then progressing into a power cat because it's presumably less work and easier, but everything's at the helm, everything's electric. So tell us a little bit about your perspective of sailing the 46 in the helm position.
Well, as soon as we're in rough weather, I'm single-handing.
He's always single-handed because I get seasick.
So what I have done is, I have all of the powered winches. I have brought all the lines to the helm, including topping lift. I've rigged a downhaul so that it doesn't matter what happens, I can always pull the mainsail down, even if there's some sort of snag or a problem. And so, and we have full helm protection. So when the weather's bad, you're dry, you're safe, you're there, and you can control everything. And look, at the end of the day, we sail very conservatively. If it's rough, if you pull the sails down, then you're a motorboat with two motors. So it's perfectly handleable for single-handed sailing. The only thing you can't do easily would be to rig the spinnaker, to fly the spinnaker. I wouldn't do that on my own. And Tania and I fly the code 0 comfortably, but then I pull it down when we hit 15 knots apparent and so on. So we don't push the envelope at all. I usually, if we do a long crossing, I will pull the mainsail up to reef 1. So we have 1 reef in the main, if there's any kind of weather that's expected.
Yeah, it's a good way to prepare and stay ahead of the boat. I'd love for us to talk, a little bit about your journey. You didn't set off crossing oceans to start with, I imagine. So tell us about the progression to doing maybe some coastal cruising to doing the arc and these different formats.
Yes, I mean, I think in the Seychelles we did shorter trips between the inner islands, sort of 50, 100 miles being sort of the maximum. When we had our 45 in Mallorca, we sort of started pushing that a little bit. We sailed across to Sardinia and Corsica. It's about 500 miles. Then the following year we went to Greece, we went to Corfu, we also went to Tunisia. So, you slowly, it was, I guess, a question of confidence. And in between I had done, that's just obviously with Tania and I most of the time. But if I do a long trip, I take extra crew. If I do so when I crossed the Atlantic, I had 3 old friends of mine, experienced sailors who
you got even more seasick than me.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
When we were chatting yesterday, there's this special way to travel, and I think by boat, and 2 themes that emerge for me in these types of conversations is the speed at which you're traveling. So you're cruising along, it's 6-8 knots, So you're seeing the world at a slower pace, but there are also, especially where you all are in Europe, there are certain places that you can only experience by boat. So tell me a little bit about what that mode of travel is like by boat, and then also the speed at which you're going versus hopping on an airplane and going 600 miles an hour. What does that mean for you?
I think we take it really slowly.
Yeah.
We go if we like a place, like for example, we love Porto Venero, and so we're going to be spending 4 or 5 nights here. We've rented a motorbike on the land, and so today we did a road trip and had a lovely lunch out, and tomorrow we'll do much of the same, and the following day. If we like a place, we stay, and if we don't, we just move on to the next place. Or if we feel like a couple of quiet nights, we can always tuck into a quiet bay and just be on our own, which is every
couple of nights.
Yeah, we love just being on our own or just with a few boats, and we always try and take the outermost mooring, so we have the horizon completely to ourselves in the morning. And we love the adventure of it.
And I think the other thing is, I mean, it varies, but firstly, you can access places. If you take our trip around Southeast Asia, you can access beaches, bays, and reefs that you can't do at all by land. So we do a lot of scuba diving. So, you can anchor off a reef, and either from the back of the boat or from your tender, you can go and dive in places where it would be almost very difficult to do otherwise. And in Europe, just from the sea, there's so many tourists, pardon me, in many places. The parking is impossible. You can't get hotel bookings, etc., certainly in the summer months. So you just come up in your boat and you anchor, and then you're right there, and you go ashore in your tender. And if you want to leave, you leave. You don't have to make bookings. You don't have to worry about anything.
Even here, I mean, the tourists are incredible, but they're all going to the Cinque Terre. So we headed in the opposite direction, and there's nobody. So it's really wonderful. We can always get away from the crowds, and I think that's been our motto in life. We love a place. We because we've been doing summers for so many years, we love a place they're all touristy places, but we like to be away off the beaten track. We don't like to see big hotels. That's what we love doing.
Yeah, it's special to be able to experience those places where everyone, the most areas are crawling with people, and you can create your own experience that is separate from that.
Exactly.
There are a couple of themes that come up in these discussions. I'd love for you to walk us through maybe some of the pictures on this slide, but also what why the decision to choose to spend your time this way.
Why? I don't know.
I mean, it's the picture on the right is my son and his wife, and we were
just about to go for a scuba dive.
Yes, we were just about to go diving, hence the colourful attire. And so it's just being able to do that and to go where you want to go. There's also a real sense of self-satisfaction and achievement when you do it, because it is the road less travelled. Anyone can get on a plane and catch a taxi to a hotel and go and sunbathe in a bay, but it's a lot more meaningful when you go to special different places on your own or under your own steam, if I could put it that way.
Yeah. Madagascar and Indonesia and Brunei and Borneo were so less traveled. I mean, it's scary. Some of the tiny islands we went to, they'd never seen European people before. They'd never seen a blonde person. So it was very, very interesting. Very interesting too that they throw all their garbage into the ocean. But you learn a lot about the world.
Yeah. The sense of discovery has to be pretty unique in terms of feeling like you're arriving at a place that not many people have been before.
Exactly. And there are not many, I don't think there are many places like that left in the world today.
Yeah.
So I think every few years we do try and go to a place that nobody else can really get to easily.
As you all were, I have one more question on this topic, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of what goes into preparing for this type of lifestyle. But when you all were deciding to do this, and maybe it was the beginning of the journey when you bought the first boat, or maybe it was kind of getting back into it after you sold your 45, going into the 46. Was there a hurdle? Was there anything that were like, oh, should we do this again? I'd love to just hear a little bit more about the decision to get back into this and do more of this after you sold the 45.
It was because I love the Far East.
Yes, yeah.
I love the Far East. I love traveling in the Far East. And we've done a lot of the rest of the world, but we hadn't done the Far East by boat. And so I said to my husband, if we're going to buy a new boat, what about the Far East?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay, what about the Far East?
Yes.
And so then we started doing some research, and we found this rally called the Passage to the East. And and we thought, oh, well, wonderful, let's join this rally.
Well, it's a bit of a safety blanket to do it with other boats rather than head off on your own.
And I could recommend that to do what we did.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was a highlight, a real highlight, not at all what we expected, the complete opposite of what we expected. We expected to eat a lot of fish. We expected to be able to buy chicken in the markets. But we couldn't do that because we found the water too dirty to be able to eat the fish. And we found the chicken piled high, and, so... But I wouldn't change that experience for anything, because it was wonderful to see the way that part of the world operate.
And going with the rally, just you meet wonderful people.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. We had with Leopard, when I got my 45, they used my boat at the multi-hull boat show in Le Grand Mot. And so they made a contribution towards the shipping. And I did the same with Singapore. So we took delivery of this boat in Singapore. And Leopard made a contribution towards the shipping because they used the boat at the Singapore boat show. Well, there were some problems with the shipping, so it was delayed. But that it does mean that you don't have to only take delivery of your boat in the United States or in Cape Town. You can make a plan if you want to. Yeah.
I love it. I love the sense of adventure. The big part of this and making the experience pleasant is preparing. Most folks know that there's in terms of different parts of the Leopard business, there's the private yacht sales, which is what the boat that you're on, and then there's also the same design or similar design boat that ends up in charter. So there's this durability, ease of maintenance when it comes to accessing systems, things like that. But tell us a little bit about what goes into your view into preparing for this type of travel.
A lot. Only when you're off the beaten track. So if you're in the Med, you can get almost anything your heart desires. But if you're going to be doing a long, a sort of a rally or a passage, you do need to make sure you've got all the basics on board. And I didn't even begin to realize that I wouldn't be able to find, the basics in Indonesia and Malaysia. And we didn't really do our homework because we didn't know that we couldn't buy fuel, for example, in Indonesia.
You could buy fuel, but the fuel wasn't suitable for a modern diesel engine.
Yeah, so we did make a bit of a huge lapse there. But otherwise, if Royden's doing a crossing, there's a lot of preparation into making sure that the freezers are full of prepared meals for when they have bad weather. Amazingly enough, when he does crossings, he's the chef, which is interesting.
I think that of the 6 points that you mentioned here, most of them are self-evident. You obviously need the full inventory of spares and things that you need, and you need the ability on board with the crew to be able to make some repairs. Sleep deprivation is always the biggest sort of factor on a passage. So the amount of competent crew that you have is important. And the boat familiarization, it takes a while to get to know all the systems. Where is the strainer for the generator? That they might be marked on a plan, but it doesn't mean you can easily find it because it's under or over something. So it takes a while to get to know everything in the boat, but it's important that you do before you set off, certainly on a long passage. But you get to know it by doing it. So
yeah, well, everything
do
we
short
did
ones first is kind of like the thing. Yeah.
And we've always had help from Leopard, and there's always been someone.
And ChatGPT is a great source.
Thank God
Yes.
for ChatGPT.
That's right. I always try to break the boat in the marina after I've had some work done or some upfit before I go sailing, across the ocean somewhere. I'd love to talk a little bit about some of the systems that really make this a comfortable experience for you all. So you mentioned the performance sails, which I love how beautiful the boat looks with those black sails. But walk us through just some of the other considerations that people should think about for this type of cruise.
Yeah, I mean, look, even for what we are doing now is we're really just doing coastal cruising day by day. We might do 1 or 2 overnight passages on our way around to Montenegro, which is 1,000 miles. But we comfortably do sort of 40, 50 miles at a time, and then stay a day or 2 or 3 wherever we are staying. So what we need from our setup is we need to be able to generate as much power as we can, given the fact that we're not using the engines all day, every day. And so I have 8 400-watt panels, which have been fantastic. On a sunny day, they will take my power bank from 50% all the way up to 100% comfortably. And it's a large power bank with 2,400 amp hours. And, we have 3 freezers, 2 fridges. So we're using a lot of energy. We have 5 air conditioning units on board. So even with just 2 of us, we're using one for several hours a day at least. So the solar panels, I'd say, are really essential, and certainly a big enough lithium battery bank is important. The one thing I wish I had done, but it wasn't really available at the time, was to rather go 48 volts. That effectively gives you, it doubles and doubles again all the power you have in your batteries.
So we couldn't do that, or we could?
We couldn't at the time. Yeah. Obviously Starlink is certainly essential if you're going over the radar, over the horizon. And a gas barbecue for South Africans is also a no-brainer. Yeah.
We'll be using it later.
Either your Starlink froze or my Starlink froze, but you froze for a second. The last thing we heard was Starlink.
Yeah, somebody got lost.
Yeah.
Did you hear the last bit?
I heard Starlink, but I see here just on the slide here extra freezers.
It's vital if you're going over the horizon.
Yeah. The internet has been a huge unlock for me. When I first got my Leopard 45, it wasn't quite out yet. So as soon as it did, it was a game changer. Which dish do you have on your boat? Just out of curiosity, the performance or the standard?
The performance of?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Sorry, Chris, the performance of?
I
was just curious what Starlink dish you had on your boat.
Starlink dish. Oh, we struggled to get it.
The Gen 3 standard dish.
The standard.
What we have.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's just the standard Gen 3. It's fairly old at this stage.
It's quite old, but it was amazing, and because we can use it, you can swap over to worldwide, or what is it?
Yeah, to global.
Yeah.
To global roaming. And I mean, that's on the open seas, that's really amazing, especially when you're in remote places.
Yeah.
And because we were in a rally, some of the boats would just come near us so that they could use our starting for an hour. Help, I need to get hold of my children, or whatever it was.
I love it.
I think only on the rally, about 5 boats at starting.
Yeah.
The other rest did not.
Yeah.
And it really is a game changer.
Let's talk about, so, we all see the beautiful marketing photos and videos, and we can envision what life would be living on a boat, either part-time or full-time. I'd love for you all to talk about what is the reality of all of this. Obviously, it's I'm thinking it's enjoyable because you continue to spend time this way, but just to kind of walk us through what the day-to-day is on this type of.
Did I walk us through? Since I'm up first, generally doing some exercises, and then at the moment I'm learning Spanish. I'm always learning a language. I mean, it's not Spanish. I'm learning Italian, which I'm absolutely loving. And then I bring him coffee at 8 a.m.
Sometimes, yes.
I give him breakfast at 9 a.m. sometimes, or we may go out for breakfast. We generally in a place like this, we'll have lunch out, and alternate days have dinner out. But if we're in a remote place, obviously we eat all our meals on board. My husband is a fish. He's in the water at least 10 times a day swimming. I love supping, and so we use the sups a lot, and he's just had delivery of a new surf ski, which we've got strapped to the side of our boat. I think that the day very much depends on where we are,
and if we're moving or not moving. But the anchoring, again, you've got an electric winch, a chain counter, these things. It's not difficult. It can be in rough weather and in confined spaces, but 2 people can easily handle it.
We seldom have difficult anchorages. And we have, as we were telling you yesterday, marriage savers, the headphones that allow us to chat to each other, which are now essential.
Yeah, exactly. And at the provisioning here in the Med, for example, or if you're in the Caribbean, it's not that difficult provisioning, because there are places to buy what you need. But having an extra freezer is definitely something I would recommend you. It just gives you the flexibility to not be bound by having to go into a town just to buy some stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting in the Caribbean and the Bahamas, we just wanted to be on board to eat fresh food, because you struggle to get fresh food out at restaurants. So every place has its uniqueness that you have to just adapt to.
Yeah. Because a water maker, is essential. They used to be problem childs, but these days they're very reliable. And as long as the water is reasonably clean, your water is never a problem. And storage in these boats, there's plenty of storage.
So much storage.
We don't have a washing machine or a dishwasher, as we mentioned yesterday. So laundry gets done ashore somewhere every week or so. You find a place that's got a laundry. All the marinas will have a laundry.
We do actually try and get into a marina. Like, we're going to be in a marina in 4 nights' time.
Every sort of 2 or 3 weeks, spend a few days in a marina.
It's quite nice to have the boat properly cleaned and the laundry properly done.
Yeah. And any maintenance issues,
exactly,
whatever, that need to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not an essential. We can be off the grid. We can be off the grid for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me just a little bit about your approach to maintenance. I imagine you do a little bit every day, so you're not creating this huge backlog of things to do. Is that accurate?
Well, I don't know what kind of maintenance.
Look, it's a new boat, so after an initial sort of teething period and getting to learn the boat properly, there's sort of this standard maintenance that you need to do. You need to flush the water maker, there's that kind of thing. And you need to clean things. But we'll get, after, I guess, 2 to 3 years, you get into a proper maintenance cycle. You have to do the odd service of your motors, genset, etc. But
And my husband is pedantic. He does things way before they're supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Everything has to be checked.
Yeah.
You always servicing everything way before the time.
yeah, but again, it's not such a burden, especially on a new boat. Once you go over 5 or 6 years, you start to now bring almost everything comes into play. Your standing rigging, the running rigging, the winches, everything now starts to need to be serviced, cleaned, repaired, replaced in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the most important thing on a boat is the stainless steel, to keep that looking good. Once it goes, it seems to go quickly.
Needs TLC.
Yeah, it does definitely need TLC. So that's just cleaning.
Yeah, but so again, as I say, on a new boat, that's not such a big thing, but the older it gets, the more it gets. And you just have to find the time and the place for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can recommend Spain.
Yes, they got lots.
They really looked after our boat well.
What Harold has a question here on, he says, what boat repair parts did you inventory, and did you ever have a situation where you didn't have a replacement part that you needed? So just,
Yes.
and anything like that. You mentioned not being able to buy fuel somewhere. Any other things like that you want to share?
We couldn't buy gas. So we actually had to buy, nobody's saying,
budget.
and lots of times we have no parts that we need to replace.
Yes.
What about that one we still haven't replaced in the engine room? That filter, was it a filter?
Yes, but we have the pump.
Yes, but the pump, we didn't have that pump.
Yes, but we're not. Yeah. But when you do a longer passage, I would say there's almost a standard list of equipment you need. The first thing is all the tools.
Yeah.
The one thing, for example, that we didn't have on board, I should have bought in Cape Town when I thought about it, but we couldn't buy anywhere, was just a simple thing of a belt winch. So if you just need to open a strainer or a filter cover that's very tight, you actually can't do it without a belt winch.
Yeah.
And it's a simple little $3 tool. But, replacement parts, there's a limit. You don't tow a spare boat behind you with everything you need.
But we do have a lot of spare parts for things.
We do have a lot. I think it's a fairly standard list. It's things that you would expect to have. Belts, impellers, filters for the genset and the engines, fuel filters for the engines especially.
Yeah, we have a little toolbox at hand which we use a lot.
Yeah.
Screwdrivers, pliers.
No, but but
I'm just saying
not
that
behind the question.
Yeah.
So
my gotcha
if there's a
part or
replacement that I've ever really needed. Yeah.
There was one scenario for me where the exhaust manifold, which is the plastic box on the Northern Lights generator, somehow managed to melt and overheat. And luckily I was in the Northeast and was able to have one shipped in. But you adapt. I want to talk a little bit about the community. I think there are two layers to this. There's when you're spending time with people on your boat. It's a very intimate experience, right? Living in close quarters and kind of the quality of time. But then more broadly, there's this community of other people who have decided to live their life this way. I'd love for you to talk about the community and the people you meet doing this.
Yeah, we've met wonderful people.
Yeah, we have met wonderful people. And
wherever we go.
I think people who... Firstly, you have a huge amount in common with the boat who's anchored around the corner from you or in front of you, whatever. Sailors are very, very helpful because it can always be you that needs to borrow a belt winch or something. And so, people are very friendly and you have a lot in common immediately. When we did our passage to the East Rally, we really made fantastic friends. Spending 4 months with the same 20-odd boats was fantastic. Yeah. So
But wherever you honestly
think it's a lonely exercise, but it's not.
Yeah. Wherever you anchored, if you're in a bay and only two of you, anchored in that bay, you will pop over with your tent and say, hi, where are you from? The only time we don't make friends with people is if they can't speak English or we can't speak one of their languages, because it's just, it's just.
Or if we have a lot of friends, if we have a full boat.
Yeah, we've had an occasion where we've invited a couple on board and they can't speak any English. So we sit there looking at each other across the table going, oh.
Google Translate, help me.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, we just meet wonderful people wherever we go. I mean, we've just come back from Genoa. We met 2 wonderful guys there, single guys. Then we got them together. And we went out with them all for dinner for the one night. Wherever we go, we meet wonderful people, really lovely people.
Yeah, I had the same experience too. I was lucky enough to have a boat delivered 6 months before the pandemic, so I was out sailing about and met some incredible people along the way. Yeah,
exactly.
Quite remarkable.
Exactly. Yeah. And we spent a lot of our time in the Seychelles and in Greece during the pandemic, and we couldn't have been luckier on our own boats here. Yeah.
So you all have 25,000 nautical miles and more than that.
Not me, because I don't do the crossings. Yeah. So only Royden can have that.
Royden does.
Yeah.
So there's that as a foundation. Then Tania, you have a ton of experience and perspective as well. But I'd love for you to just share some of the lessons along the way. So if folks are considering embarking on this adventure, they can learn from others who have done from it.
I think the most important thing is now youngsters, instead of having an apartment in New York, could buy a Leopard 46. It's possibly a lot less.
Yes, and work from home.
I mean, our kids that are almost 40, they come and join us, and they can always tag on a few extra days by working from home with the Starlink. Yeah, I mean,
but I think
that's different for us as an old couple.
Yeah.
We do things very slowly.
Yes, I think the most important thing is it's very difficult to sail to a schedule, to say, well, we have to be here by the 2nd of January, or we have to be there by the 5th or whatever, because you sail by the grace of the ocean, not in charge of it in any way.
But we do, when we have to meet the kids at a particular airport, then we always make sure we plan ahead, and we are
days in
advance. Yeah, we generally they're days in advance.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing, and have experienced and skilled crew, or have enough experience and skill on board for what you're doing. I think it's often, I think, where people sometimes get into trouble is you have friends and guests and but you now have 4 or 6 people on board, and you're going to do 2 or 3 overnights, and if anything goes wrong, all of a sudden your friends, which are great company, etc., but no one can actually really help you in 40 knots. And so you need to just make sure you have enough skill or experience on board for what you're doing.
Yeah,
I think that's
I want to make sure that
the most important thing.
Yeah, and budget just depends on where you are. I mean, budget is when you're in Phuket in Thailand, the budget can be very, very, very tiny. Everything is incredibly reasonable. We moved from there to here to Europe, and it's a completely different budget that you need. But if you stay away from marinas, the marinas are expensive. If you throw your anchor out, it's reasonable. Hello.
Yeah.
Back to the staying flexible piece. Someone once framed it like this for me, and it stuck with me. You can pick a time or a place, but not both, right? You can pick one or the other, and that's how you can kind of organize around this idea. You crossing oceans now. I remember with my boat, the first time I went from like Fort Lauderdale to Bimini, I was like, oh my gosh, whatever, a day in the open ocean, what's going on? And then a year later, I was going from the Abacos to New York, which is 4 or 5 day sail. So this idea of experience building confidence every time you're kind of under the, at the helm is adding some experience there. Uh, You talked about crew and making sure that the people you're with have the experience to contribute. Pick me up out of the ocean if I fall overboard. How do you make an assessment of someone's capabilities? Are you having a
that's really
discussion with
hard.
them, or how do you do that?
Some of our friends are getting really old. It's really sad, yeah.
But, well, I mean, look, I think, as I said, it depends what you're doing. And so if you're going to sail overnight for 2 or 3 nights, you must have at least 2 or 3 qualified watchkeepers, actually qualified sailors, I would say. If you're at any kind of weather, 3 nights at sea, people have to sleep. You have to do that. You can't easily do that on your own. And all my experiences, the rough seas, the boats handle it fine. There's
Yeah.
never a problem with the boat. It's the effect on the crew, and the crew getting tired.
Yeah, but that's only
not
when you're
able to
doing the
do
long
the thing.
crossings.
Yeah, so that's,
It's only when you're doing the long
Yeah.
crossings. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have that when
Yeah.
for example, where we are at the moment. It's just that, for example, we love having our friends on board. We are coming to visit us, and some of them are just getting a little bit old, and we'd love to invite them now. But you have to get on the tender and off the tender.
Yeah.
So it's just it's silly things. Honestly,
Mhm.
but we do love having our friends here, darling,
Yeah.
for as long as we possibly can.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions that I'm going to hop in from the that folks have submitted. So Pierre asks, is a 46 not too big for 2 people? And would a 40 be sufficient? So I think you have a point of view on this. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I mean, it depends what you want to do. It depends what you want to do.
We had a 42 lagoon, huh?
Yeah, 40 lagoon.
A 40 lagoon,
Yeah.
and that's perfectly adequate for everything you need.
Well, it depends. So, if you want your children and your grandchildren to come and visit you, you need a bit more space. If you want to go a bit further, you might need a bigger boat to have more storage and to carry more toys or equipment or things. So I think it very much depends on what you want to do. Certainly a 42-foot boat you can cross oceans and you can sail wherever you like to sail on a boat like that. So, but to me, it would depend what you want to do.
Some of the
also what you can afford.
Yeah.
That's also a factor. Yeah.
Some of the rally guys had monohulls, which were honestly tiny.
Yeah.
But they've been doing it. The one couple have been doing it for 11 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were so happy, and also in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, we met lots of South Africans because, we don't really have a country to live in anymore. So we met lots of them sailing on very small monohulls and having really wonderful times. Yeah.
Tell me, Cliff wants to know about your black sails. Any pros and cons that sit with that decision?
So there are 2 classes of sails for a cruising catamaran like this. You get the basic Dacron sails, which are the standard sails. Nothing wrong with them. They've been used for many, many years across all the brands of boats. But Leopard offer an option to upgrade that to carbon sails with an aramid sort of layer on the outside to protect it against the UV and against the rough handling that sails endure. And these are stiffer, they hold their shape better, and they give you a little bit more thrust effectively. And I went for that because the 46 has a better load carrying capacity. She's slightly heavier, slightly wider hulls, and Leopard gave an extra sort of, I think, 12% or something to the height of the mast to increase the sail area, to, I think, counter that. And then I went for the performance sails to give it an extra boost, which I've really, really enjoyed. The only negative is that they are expensive, but they're fantastic. Yes, well, I don't
I
know.
like white sails.
Tim wants to know, I'm going to ask a couple more questions, and then I'm going to ask each of you, so I'm preparing you for, one piece of advice that you would give to people. So not yet, but the next slide, I'm going to say, for folks who are considering do this, what would you share with them? But two more questions, or two or three more questions. Tim
Okay.
wants to know what the shakedown experience was like on the 46. How was that for you?
Well, I'm not sure what he means by the shakedown experience.
Remember.
Does he mean the with Leopard, the commissioning experience, or our first shakedown sale?
Let's cover both. Yeah, the commissioning experience and the getting to know the boat and all the things that go with your
Okay.
first
Okay.
outing.
I think we, through no fault of Leopard, we had a very brief handover of the boat in Singapore. The ship was delayed a few times, and we were late to join our rally. So we had one day. The guys were fantastic. Louis van Wyk and Phuket flew to Singapore to get us onto the boat. He was fantastic. And so we didn't have the time that I would have liked to have. I think it's absolutely essential to take as much time as Leopard will give you with their guys on the boat. It's part of that familiarization, as well as checking everything that you get. And our first shakedown was the next day. We left Singapore and we were on our way to the Anambas Islands, which was about 400 miles away. And we were in the Makassar Strait with no weather forecast, but we had a storm came through with 40 knots, pounding rain, and hundreds upon hundreds of ships. So it was a very scary shakedown cruise for us. But fortunately, I mean, everything worked, held up, the AIS, the radar,
You had a very competent
and we had a competent crew to come with us.
Yeah.
So, but yes, my advice to anyone is take as much time as Leopard will give you with the handover and commissioning process. It's not only checking that everything works, it's also familiarizing yourself on where everything is and what the different issues are. Yeah.
I should actually make a list of the things that we should have asked.
Yeah. Yes, a long list.
Hindsight is always 2020.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know. So your progression has been Power Cat, a few different sailing cats.
Yeah.
And the question is, as you all get older, do you envision yourself going back to a Power Cat, or you think it'll be sail cat to the end and then hang it up when it's time?
Never.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any age difference between being able to handle one of these boats or a Power Cat. Arguably, the most challenging thing we do is mooring in very strong winds. In the Mediterranean, you do the med mooring thing with your anchor and the two. So there are only two of you on board. You need someone on the anchor, you need someone on each transom, and you need someone at the helm. But there are only two of you. So that's challenging whether you're in a power boat or a sailing boat. Arguably, the power boat has more windage even.
Yeah.
But
in fact, I think we've seen more damage done to power cats trying to get into, just from personal experience.
Yeah.
And there's always someone to help you. I mean, we're the same if someone's docking or, the only thing is if you're tying up to a mooring wall, you don't have anyone to help you there.
Yeah, that makes no difference. But I don't think a power boat, you certainly can't do the longer crossings so easily. The power boat doesn't handle rough seas as well as a sailing boat. The sails sort of hold the boat and prevent the boat from swinging through the fulcrum as much as a power boat would do. So no, for us anyway, I think when we decide it's too much for us to sail a boat like this,
We'll be on the silver seas,
We'll swallow the anchor and get onto a cruise ship or something. Yeah, exactly.
which we
Have
did, and
someone
we
else
decided we were too young for.
Yeah, exactly.
have someone else drive you around. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this question always comes up, and I know the answer is it depends. But I'm hoping that you can maybe give us a range. You mentioned, and the question is around average monthly budget for living on board. The boat, you mentioned Thailand is very inexpensive, different
Exactly, it
economics
depends.
as you're in Europe. Can you give us a range though? Like, hey, no less than this, but up to this, like on
I
average?
think that's very difficult to do. Tanya drinks so much expensive wine, it would skew any budget, especially so.
If you don't drink wine, okay, and if you're happy to eat on board a lot, I reckon in Europe you could get away with, I don't know, 50 euros a day
Food, yeah.
for food, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, in Phuket, even less, literally 20 euros a day.
Mhm.
But the thing about boating is the unforeseen, just something that has to be fixed, you know. You do have always have to have a little bit of a slush fund just in case you need to go into a marina to get something fixed urgently. You know, that would be my advice, is you can actually live very, very economically on a boat, but you do have to have a little bit in the, you know, for emergencies.
Mhm.
But yeah, and the maintenance is to service the engines, costs money to the marinas are very expensive in parts of Europe. It varies
Yeah.
hugely. It can be 500 euros a day in Sardinia,
Yeah,
but 150 euros a day in Elba
yeah,
Mhm.
to be in a marina.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it's not in Greece. It's not. You tie
yeah.
up
You pay nothing.
and you don't pay anything. So
No.
it's very difficult to give a range
Yeah.
on a budget. It's definitely less than living in your house in the suburb somewhere. I
Yeah.
would say, um, but it's very difficult to give a range. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, but you can do it, yeah, economically.
Fair enough. There's the question here from Tim, just in terms of he's asking a question around gear. What's your thoughts on cameras on the boat? And then I know that there are some folks out there who have night vision cameras and things like that
Yeah.
on the mast. What's your take?
There's a new product called C something, which is AI. It's effectively an AI camera that runs experience through what things are on the water using a combination of infrared and normal light and radar and all those things,
Mhm.
which is supposed to be very good, but it's very, very expensive. So I never went for it. Um, I don't have night vision binoculars. So yeah, I don't use any of that. I think I have radar and AIS, and between the two of those at night, certainly any other vessel should show up on your AIS.
Mhm.
And if you need other information about other objects, the range and direction of travel, the radar is fantastic, in
Yeah.
particular for the weather.
Mhm.
You see, you at night you can't see a squall coming, but the radar will show you. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's been my experience too. And then also for docking, the visibility from the helm position is pretty good to see.
Yes, it is. I can't quite see the port bow very well, but
Mhm.
the rest of it you can.
And that's where I'm generally standing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 yeah. No.
All right. I'm going to ask you each to dole out some wisdom here, and share one piece of advice from each of you in terms of people who are considering choosing to spend their time this way and travel the world by boat.
Do
Tanya, let's
it.
start with you.
Yeah.
Do it.
Do it. You know, you only have one life. You we're at the pointy end of it, so we want to do as much things that are active, you know, while we still
Hmm.
can. and I don't think you regret it at all. You and the people you meet, the people you help, the cats I feed, the dogs I feed.
Yeah.
Don't even want to go that route now because I did have my dog on board for many years, and we're getting a new one in Cape Town, which will travel with us. But yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
It's honestly, you won't regret a minute, not a minute.
And that's, I would say the same thing. And I would just say it's easier than you think. You need to invest in a little bit of education, do a course or two. And it's easy. Obviously, it's expensive. You have to buy a boat. You have to do that. But it's a wonderful challenge for a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, a great way to spend time. I want to thank you both for taking the time to share your story with us. And there's a great idea that Joe has, and we might turn this into a blog post. But he's interested in your list of questions from the shakedown that you wish you had asked. So maybe we follow up separately.
Okay.
And we write about that.
Give us a few days. We'll work on that and send you something. Yes.
Amazing. So kind. So thank you all for joining us, and for the folks on the webinar, thanks for taking the time to learn more about Tania and Royden and their Leopard 46, and then keep an eye out for the 2-question survey that will pop up right after we hit end. Take care, guys.
Thanks to you and Connie and Katie.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Our pleasure. Take care.
Fair winds.